Alright, so this video is going to be on poetry scanning, and before we begin you should go ahead and write this poem down on a sheet of paper, and then you might also want to give yourself a little cheat sheet right here in the corner that shows you the common feet that we will be seeing in these poems. So the purpose of poetry scanning is to help us interpret the poem by focusing on the structure and on the rhythm and on the beat of the poem. It's one of the things that separate poetry from prose is the attention to rhythm and the sounds of the poem. So this poem by W.B. Yeats is a quatrain. So we see 4 lines and it only has 1 stanza. When we start scanning our poem, we try to look first at words that have more than 1 syllable. And a syllable is just a unique sound in the word. So for example, hands only has 1 syllable, but balloon has 2. Sometimes you can assume that a word that is spelled a little bit longer might have more than 1 syllable, but then some words like through might only have 1 syllable. So you need to be careful about that and kind of sound it out, read your words out loud and see how many unique sounds you're saying. A good rule of thumb is, I've heard, how often your jaw goes down to your hands if you put a hand underneath where your chin is. If that helps you out, then good. If not, you might want to just read the word out loud and hear how many unique sounds there are. So looking at the word balloon, we're going to try to figure out where the stress is in this word. In the word balloon, we are putting emphasis in the second syllable. This word only has 2. There's ba and there's loon. And we say balloon rather than balloon. So in that case, I will put a stress mark on loon and unstressed on ba. Another word that we're seeing is bellies. Bellies. Here, I am going to put a stress mark on bell and unstressed on lees. All right, because I'm hearing more of an emphasis on bell rather than lees. Bellies instead of bellies. And then I got another one here, into, and I'm going to put unstressed for in and stress for to. And then I've got the word narrow. Narrow. So similar to bellies, I've got more of a stress in the first syllable and an unstress in the second. So for this particular line, it seems very easy to see that it is in iambs. So I'm just going to put the rest of that pattern in. And I'm going to go ahead and separate them into iambs. All right, so I've got 3 iambs here. I know they're iambic because I've got my little cheat sheet here, and this is what I'm seeing within a foot. I got an unstressed and a stress mark. Unstressed, stress mark. I've got 3 of those. This is so far iambic trimeter. All right, we're going to look at some of these other lines, and we don't have any more words that have more than 1 syllable. So we're going to go with some of the rules that I have not yet mentioned. So for example, when we see words like tiny words like conjunctions that are 1 syllable, prepositions that are 1 syllable, articles that are one syllable, you can go ahead and assume that they are unstressed. Unstressed. All right, and I'm kind of seeing a pattern here, so I'm going to try putting stress mark here, and I've noticed that I've got two anapaests. All right, unstressed, unstressed, stress, unstressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, unstressed, stressed. So I'm going to go ahead and put a mark right here. Same thing here, preposition, article, and then a stress mark for my last syllable here, so that I am following this pattern of an anapaest. And it's okay that yours, when you are doing your poetry scanning, is a little bit different from mine, because this is all about interpreting the poem on our own. So what I'm just saying here as I'm interpreting this poem is that these words are a little bit more important than these, because these tell us kind of the position some of these things are, but these nouns and verbs might be a little bit more important. All right, so I've got another unstressed here because it's an article. I'm going to put a stress mark for this one. All right, and because I don't want this to kind of stand on its own, I'm going to say that this is a trochee. Up here, I've got stress, unstress, stress, unstress. So I'm going to put my foot mark right here. All right, for this one, I'm going to say that this is another anapaest. So I'm going to put a foot line right here, and then I'm going to do iamb. For this, I'm going to try to follow what I've got here with the anapaest. All right, so unstressed, unstressed, stressed, because I want to kind of follow this pattern. And here, what I'm going to do is, because this is sort of an important noun at the moment, and this is an action verb, I'm going to put these both as stress because I think they're just as important. So now I've got only 5 syllables to work with, but I don't want to put a stress, I don't want to put a foot line right here because I don't have a pattern that's 2 stress mark and an unstressed. I can put a foot line here and say that I've got a spondee and an anapaest, and that would follow kind of my ending on anapaests. But at the same time, I so far have 3 feet in each line, and I kind of want to keep to that. So what I'm going to do is very similar to this last line. I'm going to put a foot line right here and then one right here, and just assume that there is some sort of pause here that we're not putting in the syllable, but when we're reading the poem, we can put emphasis on that pause. Hands. Do what you're told. Or bid, my bad. All right, so looking at this, I've now got mostly iambs here. So I'm gonna say that this is iambic trimeter because I'm seeing mostly iambs, and I've got 3 feet per line. So go ahead and mark this up. You should, I'm going to be collecting this at the end of the unit as part of your note check, and we're going to keep adding to this sheet with some exercises from time to time during this unit. And if you are very confused, you can practice using the website that I have put on Canvas, and then try to work through some of that confusion, because practice is what will make this stuff stick. All right. And then when we do our poetry essay, when we're analyzing poetry, this is an important step in the TP Fast. And also, it's going to be something you'll want to talk about in your poetry essay, about how your poetry scanning and some of these decisions that you're making is reinforcing your interpretation of a particular poem. All right. Have fun scanning poetry.